Hello, listeners. We are back with another episode of LFG with Amir and Friends, your favorite LFG with A&F. And today, I've got a really special guest with me, a personal friend of mine, Joshua Carrenca, who is also a concept artist and illustrator. And Josh is going to talk about his background in this first part of the show and sort of what got him into concept art and illustration. So, all right, well, let's take it away with Josh. All right, Josh, tell the viewers a little about yourself and how you got into concept art.
Sure, yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Amir. Yeah, so how did I get into concept art and all this stuff? That's a good question. Goes pretty far back. We were kind of going over it before. I give you the rundown a little bit, but so yeah, we can go like all the way back to like middle school, early high school, something like that. Like, if anybody remembers Flash cartoons, right? That's how I got into it, right? This is like, I wanted to make Flash cartoons. So I got my super legal version of Macromedia Flash.
Super legal,
yeah,
love
because it was
it.
still Macromedia before Adobe bought it. And I just taught myself how to use the program. Just like, this is like pre-internet has everything you need days. Like, sure, the internet, like, eventually I learned way more stuff from like tutorials that people would put on like the Flash sites themselves. I even had a book of like how to use Macromedia Flash, like, and it's still somewhere, it's still kicking around in my parents' house somewhere. And I drew with a mouse because I didn't have a drawing tablet at the time, and that's where I got started, right, on like the digital art side. I always drew stuff. Even as a little kid, I had like an easel or whatever that my parents bought me, and I paint, draw, and stuff like
What
that.
was the name of the first one you had?
The first,
the first tablet.
the tablet, right? Well, after a while, like, of being like, oh man, it's so hard to like draw with a mouse and stuff like that. My parents for Christmas one year got me the Wacom Intuos 3. That going back all the way to Intuos 3, like, and it surprises me that, like, I mean, I was still late to the game. Like, Intuos 1 and 2, like, these generations are already come and gone and stuff like that. And now, I don't even know what Intuos they're on right now, like, what generation. The last one I saw was, like, the 5th generation, so...
So you started with drawing, right?
So I started with drawing, yeah, as a kid, and I really wanted to make Flash cartoons, so I started making Flash cartoons. I got the tablet, I started making more Flash cartoons. With the tablet, I got into drawing. Like, I was like, okay, well, people seem to be using this Photoshop thing for like painting and stuff like that. And Corel Painter, I tried Corel Painter too, which is another painting software thing. But everybody seemed to have Photoshop, so I stuck with Photoshop, and Corel was kind of weird to me at the time. Which is fine, because now I use Photoshop on a day-to-day basis as a professional. But yeah, that's where I started getting into it. And what I really wanted to do, I started watching like behind-the-scenes stuff of like Lord of the Rings in particular. I was
Love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, very memorable because they had so much behind-the-scenes stuff. If you get the extended DVD box set or whatever, they have like all this behind-the-scenes footage. And like stuff. I watched all of them like many times too, and watching the production behind the scenes of everything and all the stuff they did at Weta. I was just like, I don't know what I want to do here. Sorry, hit the mic. But I want to do something here. I want to be in this world.
He's showing you his passion.
Yeah, I'm a Argentinian, so I kind of have a little bit of an Italian way of speaking.
Love it.
But yeah, I was like, I did the same thing. I watched behind the scenes of like any video game that had a behind the scenes thing. I would watch that too. And I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be games or movies or something like that. But like at the time, I'm like, all right, well, I guess that means I want to be an animator.
So when did you know you were good at it, like drawing, like
I still don't. I'm still not good at it.
You still don't consider yourself good at it?
I still don't consider myself good at it. No. So the answer is never. And I guess like the like admitting some sort of like modicum of victory would be like when I got my first job. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess like somebody likes my stuff enough to pay me money to do it every day.
Got it.
And I'll get to how I got my first job too, but
yeah, let's go before that first.
Yeah, we're still before that. And I was like, I want to do something because that means I want to be in animation. Because for me, not knowing anything, because nobody could explain to me I didn't know who to ask basically. Like there's like, if I had just known who to ask, maybe I would have known more information like from go, but I didn't. I was like, okay, animation. I guess if you're in animation, that means you do everything or something.
Yeah,
I didn't know that there were such specialized positions, right? Like I just didn't know any.
Yeah, as our listeners know, this show we're free to curse as much as we want, so feel free, like whatever you want to say is fair game.
Have I been cursing? I don't even know.
No, you haven't.
Oh wow, have I actually kept it clean so far? Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well,
I'm impressed. That's why.
Subconscious. I don't know why. Maybe I feel like I'm like in a job interview or something.
Maybe, but definitely don't. Feel free.
Yeah. Fuck. What was I saying? Yeah. Animation. I'm like, okay, I want to be animation. I really wanted to go to Academy of Art here in San Francisco, but that was not in the cards. It was like one time where I took like some summer courses there that they had for high schoolers, so I got like a taste of it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like being in Academy of Art as a high schooler, it was just like. It was amazing.
It's like being at Disney, right?
It was. It was like, yeah. I was seeing how they made the sausage. I was just like, all this stuff on the walls looks so cool, right? And looking back at it, it's like student work. But like at the time, it was amazing.
Then you see the cost and how much it is. You're like, what?
Yeah, well, it wasn't me that went, what? It was my parents who were like, what? No, you're going to a public school where we can get like financial aid because we can't afford this. So that's why I ended up hunting around for like public schools in California that have anything to do with any of this. And that's another thing. Like, if I had known, if people had given me good information, like these college, like these counselors and stuff like that, don't know what the fuck they're talking about, especially in this field. I don't know if that's changed, but I would bet money that it's not changed. They don't know shit about any of this, so they couldn't help me, right? If I had known, I would have accepted the offer or whatever. Like I applied to a bunch, and I was accepted in San Jose State. And if I had known anything, I would have gone. Right? Because they actually have a really good program, and I know this because now I have friends and coworkers who went there, and like I'm like an honorary member of like the what they call the Shrunken Headman Club, which is like their art society there basically, and I've been to like many of their events now through these friends and stuff like that, like their Shrunken Headman cons and stuff like that, and it's just a great community. They actually teach all the fundamentals and stuff that I'm going to talk about, right, that I didn't learn in school. And I would have gone there, but it just wasn't from the outside. It wasn't apparent what kind of a quality program they had. Aside from the fact that if I had gone, I would have been in school more than 4 years, because apparently people never finish in 4 years because it's a bit of a mess. But so it would have been a hard sell to my parents. But anyways, it would have been worth it. Instead, I went to Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz. And because they had something called the Film and Digital Media course or whatever, and they also had a game design course, even though I knew game design wasn't what I wanted to do. That's the engineering or the programming side. But I'm like, okay, well, all these clues are here, right? Like all this evidence is here that this might be a good choice. So I went there, and it turns film and digital media for one was a bust. I found out that like the digital media part had nothing to do with like the VFX industry or anything like that, so that was a bust. The film stuff itself, like you never even touch a camera until upper courses, so it's like that's a bust. So immediately I switched to art, which was a much more traditional art program, right? Which was fine. There's some pros and cons to that, and I'll go through them quick. Pros, I get to learn, the traditional way to do things, which is important for every artist, digital or not, to know. You should know how to draw. You should know how to paint. You should learn color theory with paint. I think is better than learning color theory on like Photoshop or whatever, doing digital art. What they didn't do was teach us much in the ways of fundamentals, right? You need to learn things like color theory and value and composition and anatomy and stuff like that. These teachers were way more interested in what does your art mean? What does it make you feel? Like all this stuff, right? Not the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. They were more like art.
Oh, are we talking about woke art now?
No, we're talking about woke art. We're just talking about the stuff you go to galleries and stuff like this.
Oh, okay.
Not commercial art. Not art that actually gives you a career. that, where you're producing things that people will actually care about, because honestly nobody cares about your stupid found objects sculpture that is about the duality of.
Yeah, we're talking modern art now. Yeah. My favorite.
This is all modern art. Like this is they ate that stuff up over there. They love modern art. So figure drawing, very important thing for an up-and-coming artist, for any artist at any level. Everybody should be doing figure drawing, but especially if you're learning, right? You're going to learn about anatomy. You're going to learn about gestural drawing. You're going to learn everything.
Yeah, take note, up-and-coming artist. This is a professional.
Yeah, if you want to get into this, figure drawing. If there's anywhere in your, where you live that does figure drawing in person, even better. Do figure drawing in person. If you can't do virtual figure drawing, it's not as good because stuff about it's on a screen, so you're not actually experiencing it in 3D, blah blah blah. But whatever, you'll figure it out. But sign here that Santa Cruz wasn't a great place to actually learn how to do shit for real. The only figure drawing class was in upper division, which means you had to complete lower division stuff to get to, which means you probably don't get upper division classes until the last 2 years. But and then they only ever offered it once while I was in upper division, and it filled up immediately because there were only 20 spots.
Yeah, so that goes back to what you were talking about why it takes people longer to finish, right? Is partially.
Well, that was in reference to the San Jose thing.
Okay.
The way they had your requirements to actually complete stuff. I had a friend who took 7 years to finish.
Okay, so that's not related to.
That's not related to Santa Cruz at all. I finished in 4 years, no problem, because Santa Cruz is ooh, we don't even care about grades. You can do pass fail.
Good old Santa Cruz.
Good old Santa Cruz. But the nice thing about Santa Cruz is they didn't teach me any fundamentals, but I learned all that stuff on my own because I found stuff online. And what got me into concept art was halfway through college, I discovered stuff online. In particular, a channel called Design Cinema, which is by a concept artist called Feng Zhu, who has a concept art school even in Singapore, and he's done concept art. He's been in the industry for decades, and he's worked on a bunch of stuff. But the biggest thing, whether or not you like his art or whatever, he had all this stuff for free on his YouTube channel where he just taught you not even just the basics, but he got into in depth about certain things, certain subjects. You learn a lot going through all those videos, and I was and that was when it dawned on me, I learned more about the industry through all these things online, and being concept artist. That's a thing. That's a specific thing. There's all these specialties now that I've become aware of. Concept artist. That's what I want to do. I want to just sketch crazy monsters and spaceships and worlds and stuff like that. That's what I want to do. So I started learning that.
So if you were to define concept art, what would you put as the definition for it?
Concept art is the basically the stage where everything is designed. We're talking if we're talking about it in a production cycle for something, that's pre-production, especially if you're talking about movies and stuff like that. All that stuff happens before anything is built or modeled or animated or shot or whatever. You do concept art.
Got it.
This is where you're coming up with your characters, with your monsters, with your sets, whatever. Concept art. You go back to the first, the Star Wars, right? Before they shot anything, before they built anything, they had concept art, and that's what sold the idea. Was all these amazing paintings.
Or the what is it called? The Elrich or whatever. Which one am I thinking of? The you know what I'm.
No.
Darn it! I'm thinking of the ones that have the ones where where Stranger Things got their lore from. I'm trying to remember the name of the
lore.
Where the monsters
D&D?
came from. D.
They got it from D&D, but D&D was very. You're talking about Eldritch horror.
That's it, Eldritch horror. Yes. That's
there's a lot of that kind of stuff that came from Lovecraft and stuff like that they put into D&D, and then
you're right. That's what I was thinking of, because that's what I think of when I also think of designs that got actually put in for the horror genre.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like we're talking. If we go back to Stranger Things, using it as an example, like the what's it called again? The Demigorgon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody sat down and did who knows how many sketches and designs and stuff like that before they came up with like a final, design, and that's what ended up, then all the 3D artists get to work, all the prosthetics artists get to work.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so the concept art is what comes first. If you don't have good designs, none of that other stuff matters, really.
Yeah, and then going off that, right? Then you were doing. I know you were talking about how it was a struggle to get your first job in
Yeah.
the industry. So then you were doing commissions and things
Yeah,
like that.
so when I graduated, it took me 3 years to get my first job. And in between that time, I was doing commission work. I was doing like working as a freelance artist on like indie game projects that never ended up paying me or whatever. But they were all learning experiences.
Not uncommon, guys, to not get paid for those.
Yeah, although you shouldn't accept that. Like you shouldn't accept not being paid. That's really shitty. But you
Right.
know, when you don't know any better, it's tough. You just look back on it and be like, okay, well, I took my lumps and I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
But you should never work for free.
Yeah, exactly.
Never work
no
for
free
exposure
lunches.
bucks or anything like that. Like that. Just do your own stuff. If you're not going to be paid, you might as well be working for yourself. Anyway, off track. Because that stuff ended up all happening to me anyways, because nobody was there to tell me.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's great, so other people can learn from your journey as well. So going off that, then I know you said you were doing commissions, gaining experience then, and then that ultimately after 3 years, now you're doing your thing, finally get noticed a little bit, and get your first job, right?
Yeah. Well, we skip a couple things.
Okay.
I going back to Santa Cruz, so I don't say nothing but bad things. There's one good thing. They had the game design program that eventually started doing things where they linked up with the art department. They did like collaborative stuff, and that was my first experience actually like working with like a game team, right? Like as a concept artist.
Right.
And also like doing stuff for the actual game, like it was in 2D, the game that I worked on. So like we did the concept art and then we did the actual game assets, which that was a good experience. And then so yeah, after school, doing all the commission work, was gonna go back to school. I was gonna go to Noman in Hollywood, like Noman School of Design, right, where I was gonna be like, okay. So we talk about concept art compared to like the other roles or whatever. Like if you look on, the movie, credits, like concept arts are like this many, and then like 3 stuff is like animations like that many.
Yeah,
minutes,
it's
right?
like 3 times as much.
So I was gonna learn that kind of stuff, and then at the last minute, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna go to school for 2 more years and be in debt, and like I'm gonna try. I'm gonna keep banging my head into the wall here and keep trying. And then I got lucky. I was right place, right time. It's like you got to be right place, right time, right portfolio. I ended up getting my first job at a place called Machine Zone, which is like a mobile game studio that was like making gangbusters at the time, and that's where I ended up working for my first job.
Nice.
So,
and yeah, and that's a great part. Actually, to transition into our studio break, our first studio break for the show. As you heard, it's right place, right time, right portfolio. That third one, don't forget. That's also an important aspect.
Sometimes you could be the right place at the right time, but your portfolio is like doesn't show the right stuff, and like it's tricky. It's tricky because some people want to see something very specific, and you could do it, but you don't have it at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, so we're gonna go on our first studio commercial, guys. We will be right back with you in a minute.
So, what we're now looking at is the Bay Area Classical Artist Altier website. I'm going to briefly scroll through it, but this is a art school that's located in the San Carlos area over on Industrial Boulevard, where they teach traditional Altier, depending on how you pronounce it, classical Renaissance artwork. So, next, we're kind of looking at some of the people who are doing work there. There's a whole studio setup. You come in, you do a lot of work in value. So when we talk about value, it's like light and shadow. They have a set of busts that are like the traditional Italian Renaissance sort of Roman Greek sculpture busts, and they use Rembrandt lighting, single form lighting to explore those busts. Um, Linda Delaney is the chairperson of the Baca. I think she's also the owner. So that's some of her work. And then there's some other people who teach there, and you're seeing those portfolios as well. And we'll get into that for a minute. This is Noah Buchanan's portfolio piece. He taught for a little bit at Baca. I took classes with him at the College of San Mateo, which you'll see next in just a second. So this is the College of San Mateo page, and this is where you can take the expressive figure drawing class, the portraiture class. So if you can't attend Baca, you can attend CSM. CSM is something like $300 a semester. So you're going to get 17 weeks twice a week. So if you think about it, that's something like 34 art lessons for $300. So that's very, very, very affordable for what it is. And they offer a series of courses taught by Noah and other traditionally trained professionals. Okay, so this is Noah's portfolio. This is the guy who taught me some stuff. I can tell you that he's highly, highly professional and highly regarded. He's part of like the Royal Scotland Fellowship or something like that, the Royal Academy of Scotland or something like that. I'm probably butchering it, but anyway, he's a phenomenal artist who's well respected on the East Coast, the West Coast. He's from New York, that's where he went to school, but he's also teaches at UC Santa Cruz. This is the guy who I think Josh was talking about when he was mentioning the figure drawing class. This is one of the guys who teaches that class. He's well regarded, well respected, and he has a following in Europe. We're going to look at some of his portfolio in just a moment. So this is the traditional figure drawing stuff that he teaches. It's actual, anatomically correct figure drawing. They do teach you things like forced perspective and other aspects that are, more advanced techniques. But it's all traditional figure drawing, whether it's red chalk or whether it's the black chalk with the white as well for the cold highlights. That's a self-portrait of Noah. I believe that's his wife. But yeah, he's a phenomenal artist. He's a phenomenal guy, and I have a lot of respect for him. He taught me some stuff, and if it wasn't for his influence, I wouldn't be in this world of figure drawing. I'm not as good as I'd like to be, but I plan on taking classes at Baca and hopefully finding my way back to taking classes with Noah again in the future. So those are two resources for traditional figure drawing, which Josh was mentioning is very important. These are two local Bay Area resources if you're interested in pursuing that route, and they are 100% legitimate traditional training techniques that are very grounded in a robust history and culture of fine art. All right.
And we are back from our first studio commercial. Last segment, we were talking with our guest, Joshua Carrenca, and Josh was going through his background and what led, to his love for concept art and illustration and how he got to his first job. So now we're going to actually talk about what he does in his current job, some of the work he's done, which we will display, and this you can find this in his ArtStation portfolio, and he's gonna really give you sort of in depth into what went into these designs and why they're important to him. So, all right, Josh, let's take it away, and we are gonna start with you just sort of giving us a background of what you do.
Sure. So at the time, right now, I work at EA. We're in like the mobile games division, and basically been there for like 4 years, and it's been the same project, since I got hired. Just a game called Covet Fashion, and it's like a sort of fashion, not dress up game, but like you're creating styles and stuff like that, and it's using like real life brands and stuff like that. It's kind of integrated into, they call it lifestyle type game, and it's like a live service game, so it's just never ending. We're always putting more stuff into it, so that's why.
And what platform specifically is this for mobile?
Mobile, it's all mobile.
Okay.
Yeah. iOS and Android.
Yep.
It's been that for the while. Like apparently the game's about to turn 10 years old.
Oh
like,
wow.
It's a long lasting thing. Like
who played? Do you know the demographics that play?
The demographic is like women between like ages like in the 30s and 40s. Like that's like the main demographic, I think. And yeah, it just has like. It doesn't like have a huge player base. I mean, it's got a pretty big player base, but it's got a very devoted central player base. The people who play this game, freaking play this game. Like they are really into it. Yeah.
Okay. So very stable, user
user base.
User base.
Community,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call
whatever you want to call that. Yeah. That's awesome. That's good to hear. So let's backtrack from that a little bit now. So I know you have your ArtStation portfolio that you have both stuff you've done on commission as well as stuff that you've done while working on Covet Fashion.
And also just stuff that I've done for fun on my own.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so there's like a mix of all those things.
Awesome. So we're gonna give you a little taste, listeners, of what Josh has worked on both on his own time and at work as well, for work rather. So let's dive right into it actually, and let Josh, as the artist here, really talk about what went into these. So we're gonna start. So the first design is, and Josh, maybe you want to introduce it.
Yeah, we'll start. Well, right now we're starting with some personal work, because I sort of send a mixed bag to Amir of like stuff. So
always a good thing.
Yeah, this is some fan art of mine actually. This is Kaladin fighting the Pursuer, and this is for any Brandon Sanderson fans out there, some Stormlight Archive fans. That's what this is from. This is from like a scene kind of in my mind out of the most recent Stormlight Archives book by Brandon Sanderson. And it's just like one of the sort of main antagonists of that particular book fighting one of the main protagonists, and it's just like I still have this like desire to make like a whole series of fan art out of like Stormlight Archive stuff, just because I love that series so much. But I just wanted to do something that could like also have the feel of like a sort of action kind of splash screen that you might see in like a game like League or something like that.
Cool, awesome. It looks amazing. Like
Thanks.
I was looking at it and I'm like, it sort of reminds me. It actually reminds me a lot of like just like the beast in the background like reminds me of, like, for whatever reason, like of a werewolf in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like it has that sort of like feel to me.
I definitely made him look maybe more wild and beast-like than he might be described in the book. But for me, I always imagined him like just like superhumanly like big and brutish and stuff like that. Like they describe him as like a hulking figure, but like I think I made him more hulking than even they think of the Ashley's a more accurate description. But for me, like the difference in size is the contrast makes it really cool.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that too. That's why I'm saying like it just really stood out to
for
me.
Anybody who read the book and you look at this, that is that red streak that is always described whenever he like kind of warps out of one, and like when he like teleports and he like leaves a shell behind and then appears somewhere else. So,
all right, we're gonna go to the next one, which is Colossus.
Yeah, so this is now we're harkening back to my Machine Zone days, and in Machine Zone I worked on 2 games. First game was called Game of War, and if anybody was on the internet anywhere back in the day,
Game of War, boy, right here, yep.
Yeah, you saw the commercials all over the place. I'm sorry, I'm not responsible for the commercials, but I did art for the game, so I'm sorry, I guess. And I have tons of art from Game of War, but I picked the one in this one in particular just because like I try to pick stuff that has a story behind it always. There's stories behind everything. You can always show somebody like something they worked on, they can probably remember like everything that was going through their minds that whole time. So this is basically, we had splash screens that we made. That was one of the things we would do, where anytime there was like a new event or whatever, like the splash screen, the the loading up screen, splash screen, whatever you want to call it, changed. To the whatever was in that event or whatever. This was like a Colossus thing, which is apparently a very high value, like kind of raid boss style like thing, right? And I picked this one because it puts into perspective like how wild, like this studio was at the time. Like my lead artist, the lead artist at the time, like pulled me aside and be like, and like told me like, you have any idea how much money? Like I found out how much money we made off this Colossus event, and I'm like, how much? And I can't remember that number, but it was like, I don't even. It was like millions. It was ridiculous. I'm like, dude, why can't I see like a cut of this? Like, I mean, technically I get paid, but like, if I work on something that is like super high value, that like getting the armor set alone, like is like thousands of dollars. Like, if you want to just buy your way into it, it's ridiculous. It's like one of the craziest, most like wild monetization styles ever. And I don't know, the game made so much money.
Seems like
it's disgusting. I was disgusted working there, but at the same time, yeah, it was a job, right?
Yeah,
and they gave us good perks and stuff like that.
I mean, it's also. I mean, it looks really cool.
Thanks.
Like I especially like the tint, the green tints like at the edges that you make.
Yeah.
Like it's more like how it's fading out. Like that's really cool.
Oh yeah,
to
it was
me.
definitely like like in the concept art. Because I wasn't hired as a concept artist. I was hired as a 2D artist. So I did like illustration. I didn't design that much. Sometimes I did design.
So
stuff,
out of curiosity, so what defines a splash screen in this case? Like what does that mean?
So in this case, if you load up the game, the splash screen is the first thing you see.
I see. Okay.
It pops up and it has like some cool art and stuff like that. And then anytime you hit a loading screen, I think it would use the splash screen as well.
Okay, cool. All right, we're gonna go.
And that's why there's that big gap at the top. That's where the logo for the game would go.
Oh, okay.
So it was also like, now we're getting into the weeds. Like from a point of like composition, it was always a challenge, these splash screens, because you had to fit the cool monster, but at the same time there had to be space for the logo. And also there was like safety bounds on the side, because you would have to be able to keep the points of main interest within like, it would basically like, there would be like a guide box to be like, okay, well this is how much is going to get cut off on an iPhone, this is how much is going to get cut off on an Android phone, this is how much is going to get cut off on an iPhone 4, like, and you had to like have work basically in the safety area, but also fit space for the logo, and also make sure nothing important is happening where the loading bar would be. It was a nightmare.
Wow.
Always.
Yeah, that sounds like
real challenge every single time. And at the same time, you want to make it look cool.
So the next one I see is the infantry troop banner.
Yeah. So this is another Machine Zone thing. After Game of War, we started working on. Sorry about that.
All good. You got to make sure that
we started working on another game of the same ilk that was supposed to be like Final Fantasy, until they struck a deal with Square Enix and actually got the Final Fantasy license. So this is when Final Fantasy 15 came out. So it became Final Fantasy 15 themed, right? And that was really cool, because I got to say I worked on a Final Fantasy game, technically. And another cool thing about it was we got to, like, they came up with some excuse about how we got to learn from the artists over there, and we got to go to work at Square's Tokyo office for a week. We got sent over to Tokyo and just hung out there and learned a bunch of stuff from the art director, who was a really cool guy and just super happy to have us. He was just super happy to explain, like, talk about anything. But yeah, so, and then we would, like, this is like a kind of thing we would do where they were basically like troop banners for like every kind of troop, tier of troop. like if you look at a game that it's probably still going now, and I haven't seen it for years, but like they have probably have so
Yeah,
freaking many
I've
kind
fallen
of
out of
tiers.
gaming too, but I used to play Final Fantasy, and so I know how big of a franchise
Yeah.
this is.
Well, I mean, like there's that, and there's also like making content for a live service game where they just have to continue to add and add and add more, right? Like when I was there, when we were like putting the game together for release, like we only needed like 5 tiers. They probably have 100 tiers by now or more, right? But anyways, we had to like start from nothing. We had to figure out what our game was going to look like, how much like Final Fantasy was going to look versus like how much of like this different kind of like we had like a hybrid, right? It didn't look exactly like Final Fantasy, but it had to look enough like Final Fantasy to be like Final Fantasy. I just picked this one because it was very close to like what the kind of stuff in Final Fantasy 15 actually looked like. Particularly like they had that movie that they released alongside Final Fantasy 15. It was called like Kingsglaive. That was it. Really like the Kingsglaive aesthetic. And they liked it for the troops too. So that's how
Cool.
this guy ended up.
Let's go to now we're going to Dark Souls. Let's go.
So now going back again. I think this is pre my Machine Zone job. Like there was when Dark Souls 2 was coming out, IGN
had a
contest
right?
to design your own armor set and your own weapon, and they had like winners from each one. I didn't win the weapon contest, but I won the armor contest, and this is the design that won. Would you like to know what the prize was?
Let's hear it.
So I was like, that'll be cool. I'll win like a little Dark Souls statue. It's like a 7-inch statue. That's cool. I'll have that. I read that wrong. They sent me a 7-foot statue. Life size, like the I forget the name, but like the knight that they have in all the promotional material and stuff like that from Dark Souls 2. That
Shack size.
Yeah, like life size, like on a pedestal of like made to look like a rock, with like his 2 weapons. It came out on pallet because it came like in pieces, like that you would put together like mannequin style, right?
Oh man!
And it came in boxes on a pallet, and yeah, I was blown away. I'm glad I saw pictures of it. I eventually sold it because I couldn't. There was no space for it, right?
Yeah.
It was huge, and this was before I had a job, so I needed the cash, so I sold it. I kind of wish I had kept it now,
but still, that's a 7-foot statue. Okay.
So yeah, that's the design that won.
Awesome. Let's
kind of proud of that.
Let's
All right, going back to Game of War.
Yep. The avatars.
That was a lot of fun. It's because we would just make dozens, like so many, just like character portraits for, like basically these were like player avatars that they could buy or whatever, and we just had to make shitloads. So it was just like we became like a factory of like avatars, because originally it was just like a thing, like they started like, okay, we'll make a few and whatever, but then they turned out to be so popular that we just had to keep making more, which was fun. These are a couple that I did.
Yeah, we have.
These are like monster hunters. I remember the theme of this one was like monster hunters.
We have the rogue or 2, I think.
And then like another thing we liked to do when we were making avatars, because we needed so many of them, we were like, hey, if anybody wants to become an avatar, like just you have to sign a thing, but we'll put you in the game. So there's an avatar of me. I didn't make it. My buddy, other Josh did. Josh Harris. He made my avatar. Somebody else made his. I didn't make his. We all got we got each other's faces traded around. The avatar on the left here that's probably gonna be on screen while I'm talking. That was somebody else at the studio. She wasn't even in the art department, but she wanted to be an avatar, so I ended up turning her into like a rogue.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then the rest are just like random, like kind of meshes together of like faces that I find on like Pinterest or whatever.
All right, and now we get to Final Fantasy: A New Empire.
Yeah, and then we had the exact same thing had to happen for Final Fantasy. Make a bunch of avatars, but they had to look Final Fantasy-ish, right? Like, so it was a different look than that look that we had in Game of War. It had to be kind of anime.
Yeah, right. They have. That's what I was gonna ask you.
They had to be like very beautiful and like very stoic.
Yeah, it feels like they've got that like what do you call it, like the very posh look.
Yeah, they had to look like they could be like J-pop stars or K-pop stars or something like that.
Yeah, all the touch-ups and everything.
Really crazy like hair and like that kind of stuff.
So like for example, just out of curiosity, so like what more would you have to do for this more so than the previous avatars that you had like?
I feel like the only difference is the style was much more narrow. Like we need our faces to look like a Final Fantasy character, right? Like you couldn't make them too real because reality isn't pretty enough to be Final Fantasy. You know
like the eyes especially. I noticed. Like
the eyes are big, but more than anything, they were so particular about getting the hair right. I remember. I guess I like stumbled upon the right way to do hair at some point, and they made me like demo to everybody else how I was doing hair so that they could do it the same way.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't know how I ended up doing hair correct before anybody else, but somehow I did.
All right, let's see. So this is the gear sets.
Yeah, and if we want to talk about like what else like we were spending most of our time doing on games like this, Final Fantasy and Game of War were kind of the same way, but I really like this stuff that I made for Final Fantasy, and they were gear sets for basically like you have like a champion like or whatever hero kind of like character that you would gear up for your city that you're building or whatever like the game was basically, and like the you'd have gear sets, right, like weapon and like all head, torso, and then feet. We didn't have like leg pieces. We just had feet because that it all has to fit in the square, right? So
right.
And then
limited space again.
And then like an accessory. So that's you always have like this many pieces. And I don't know. I just really like the stuff that I made for Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Some of it's crazier than others, but they were all pretty crazy. They had to be crazy. And I got paint a lot of metal. I got really good at metal.
I figured, that's what it looked like, and then
Now we're going to Covet Fashion.
Now we're going to the current one.
Yeah, current game. Yeah, and this is just examples, so you can see like the avatar, right? Like the lady that you're dressing up, like she's always in that same pose. So like that's the challenge here, is like always making stuff work for this avatar who's always doing that like runway walk. But this is stuff that I made. A lot of this was like what they call Covet collections, which is like we have brand garments or whatever from like real brands, for that is the majority of the stuff that we have. But we also have our own line called Covet Collection, and it's stuff that we design, right? So this is stuff that I've made. Like
so like what specific the Covet designs, what kind of themes do they go for mostly? Is it like fantasy themes?
So when we do Covet collections and like our own stuff, it tends to be more fantastical because we don't tread on the toes of like the brands. So like that's the brands are already kind of cover the more like down to earth real stuff. So with the Covet collections, we tend to be more fantastical or fanciful, or like
got it.
Stuff that's less realistic, but still cool, and like the player would want to dress up, especially for like themed things that are more fantastical, because you're dressing up for like events.
Right, that makes
like
sense.
A little story
Banquets,
behind them
I bet, or like
there's always like a story that you want to make a look for, and I just big range of stuff, like down to a skirt that's made out of water to like a cyberpunk thing that I pitched. I wanted cyberpunk clothes.
Nice.
To like armor for like an elf.
Many of our friends would appreciate that cyberpunk reference, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, I was super. I was hyped up for cyberpunk at the time, so I was like, I want to make cyberpunk clothes.
I bet. Yeah. Then this was like, I think this was like as you were starting, right? It says because this looked like the concepts.
I wanted to include like because I had so much design work that like didn't end up getting used. For the Covet collections, and we also have props, and that's where all these weapons are from. They're like the more fantastical props in the prop shop. I get a little bit of an inkling into it's like a reminder. Oh, this is what working for a fantasy game used to be like. Like I get to have the same experience as what I used to do for like Final Fantasy and Game of War and stuff like that. So I end up making way more than they ever need, and I like to just show off like the unused designs and stuff like that.
Nice. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's see. I think it's still
Just more stuff. I have so
more
many
stuff.
designs that just never get used. I just want to just save them somewhere.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. I mean, I really like the different colors that are being used. Like, there's different types of. I think some of these resemble like scythes and different.
They're not
weapons.
scythes. Those are like half or a crescent moon like magical staffs or something.
Oh, magical staffs.
For like
Okay.
for a witch themed thing.
Okay, shows you how much I know about weapons, but.
Yeah. Well, they're also very small. On this screen.
Yeah, this is again covered art. These are everyday items.
These
though,
are more
yeah.
everyday items. We make so like I included a lot of stuff in my portfolio of like the stuff that I made for the prop shop, but there's just so much more that I don't even include because I've just made so many props.
Oh, and actually, a good thing I should ask in the game: how does it work for players to get these items?
They buy them.
They buy them. Okay.
Yeah, and then you can style looks that have props that are either held in the avatar's hand or they're in the background or the foreground.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Let me.
So, for example, the cauldron would be on the foreground, stuff like that. Okay, now we're jumping somewhere else. So, in between my job at Machine Zone after they laid off most of the artists and when I started at EA on Covet, did a bunch of freelance stuff. And I included work from. I ended up working as a freelance artist for a art house called Volta, and they at the time had a contract for making Bakugan trading cards. And I did a lot of Bakugan cards during that time. It's just such a different style of work, like of stuff that I was doing compared to anything that I was.
So like the first image with the cobra, like what is that? What is that one like in the game?
I don't know. I don't know anything about Bakugan.
Okay, so you
I was the colorist.
Okay.
I didn't even make. I didn't do the line work. The lines were done by a different artist, and I was given the lines, and then I did all the color and rendering. It was just like the. I don't know. It's just like the Cobra guy.
I thought maybe you knew the significance.
I don't know anything about it. No, I just got the style Bible. I got the card for I got the card. I was paid by card, right?
Yeah.
So I got the line work and the design to follow like the color scheme with, and I just made them. I just did it.
Honestly, that's great too because you're not always gonna do things that you know a lot about. I mean, so
it's just a job. You just have to find. You just have to slip into that skin and work.
Yeah, exactly. Like put your skills to use. And,
I learned some tricks actually. Like you learn something from everything that you do. And I came away from these Bakugan cards with a couple of tricks for making certain kind of renderings look 3D. Like they had tricks that that I learned from their design Bible that I still use to this day.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, so definitely listeners check these out. Like these are great images. Like I was really when I was scrolling through them like, whoa, these look really cool. Like, the design for it. Like especially this one right here.
Sometimes I wish I could have just turned out the lines and had only the rendering behind it because I thought it looked more like a 3D model. But then you put the lines back on because that's the style.
Yeah, because that's the style, right? Okay, and then we're getting to the last. This is the last one.
Last one.
Yeah.
This is. I just wanted to include some more personal art in the list of stuff that I gave you, and this is kind of like going back to a couple years ago. So I do Inktober every year, basically for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
And not this last October, but the October before, I ended up just deciding to start drawing monsters eating burgers. Because I drew this guy eating a burger one day. It was like the second day of the month, and then I drew another monster eating a burger, and then I drew something else, and they were like, "Where's the burger?" I'm like, "Fuck." So like the rest of the month, I was drawing monsters eating burgers. Like that. It was
like
just
what inspired you to put the burger?
I just thought it would be funny to have a terrifying monster eating a burger like really daintily like that, like this guy. And then it became a challenge to figure out different monsters eating burgers in different ways. Like,
Nice. Yeah.
I always think it's fun when you draw something or like make a character to give them something to be doing with their hands.
Mm.
And that day it was a burger, and then it just became a theme. So like later, like months later, I just took this guy and I decided to paint him up. And,
Yeah, like you said, I mean,
yeah.
people will run with it, right? Like different themes. Like
People
they'll be
liked it. People
yeah,
liked my burger series.
right? Yeah, I saw it too. So
Yeah,
that
I have the sketchbook with it all here. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it looks great. Like I was like, whoa, that's cool. That's different than other stuff I've seen. Like I haven't seen something similar to this. So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely, it's got its
silly.
own sort of like it's got its own appeal.
You know what?
to
Looking
it.
at it at a distance, see, this is the thing about being an artist. And you go back and look at your old stuff. Like I can see the rendering that I did. I'm like, I would change that to be like one of the more interesting things about this design was how crazy his mouth full of teeth was,
Mhm.
and you lose it a little bit. I put too much shadow in his mouth. You don't see as much as the teeth on the top and the
Yeah,
inside.
I kind of get what you're saying
I
too.
would tone down that shadow or brighten up the teeth and stuff like that. I feel like I'm losing something now that I'm looking at it from a distance.
Yeah, even though I'm not an artist too, I can see what you're saying in terms of like emphasizing
Yeah.
the teeth.
Because that's one of the that's like one of the main characteristics of them is like the teeth. Hey, I gotta go back and fix that today. I'm not gonna be able to like. It's gonna bug me until
It's
I
gonna
fix
bug
it now.
you. See,
Yeah.
this is something I'm sure Josh isn't the only one. I know other artist friends are the same way. Once they catch something, it bugs them until they're able to go back and make that particular
Yeah.
fix that they want.
Sometimes, and this is a tip for anybody doing art, you gotta do what I'm doing right now. You do it sooner, and like take a step back and look at it from a distance. Look at the whole thing. Because sometimes you're too zoomed in, you're too like lost in the weeds, kind of like, and it looks fine from there. But you have to step back and look at it from afar, and this is a good way.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys. Well, you just saw some fantastic, work that Josh worked on, both before his time at EA and while he's been at EA with the Covet series.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna now take our second studio commercial break right now, and we'll be back shortly. Stay tuned, and we're gonna have our last segment with Josh. See you soon.
Fan-made armor and weapons that should be in Dark Souls 2. Congratulations to the winners. We got the armor set here. This is the one that Josh Carrenca submitted and won, and they gave him the statue of it, the 7-foot tall statue. It's pretty good. Alright, all who don this cursed armor will eventually be burned to ash, leaving behind only an everlasting fire as their grave. I think this needs a little bit of a touch-up. Doop 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 doop. Man, Josh is right. It's really hard to draw with a mouse. Let me get my stylus out. Doop 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 doop.
And we're back from our second break. We're still here with my buddy Josh, and this part we're going to talk more about Josh's love for traveling. He's really into fitness. For those that can't tell, I mean, he's in great shape. And we're going to also talk about just other hobbies he has. Maybe get to know him a little more as a person. Let's start maybe with fitness. I know you're really into fitness.
Yeah.
I know you're really regimented about not only going to the gym but also just eating well and everything. So I wonder if you can maybe just talk a little about that and like how maybe that helps you also with the things that you do. Like I'm sure it probably helps somewhat with art too in terms of like just the discipline aspect.
I guess discipline is the thing that's relevant to art. I always think it's funny. There's a crossover when it comes to being like artists and fitness nuts. You know, or have like a big like crossover in like knowledge of anatomy.
Mm.
It's interesting that like so much of like the knowledge of the muscles and stuff like that like that I have as an artist is also applicable to like okay I understand how like the human muscular anatomy works and stuff like that too. But other than that, yeah, discipline, I guess. And other than that, no, nothing else.
Other
It's
than that, you're
completely
like
separate.
night and day, buddy.
Yeah, no, it has nothing to do one with the other. There's so many, like, you can be the best artist in the world and never go to the gym. But if you go to the gym, you have free muscle anatomy reference just in the mirror with a camera. You can get your own reference pictures. I never really do that. I've maybe done it once, but you can do it. You know,
Well, once that he's willing to admit.
that I've actually used, or at least
Yeah, I'm just playing with
well, or that I had provided for someone else, maybe.
You never know, but yeah. On a serious note, though, that does make a lot of sense. That there's only so much in common with them.
It's just a different hobby. It's like just something else that I want to do. Or that I like to do. That is just its own thing. It has nothing to do with art.
When did you start with fitness? Like really getting into it?
I mean, I've always like done stuff physically, like as a kid or whatever, like or growing up. I always practiced martial arts and stuff like that. I practiced Aikido for the longest time.
I know you're a big soccer fan too.
I never played soccer.
But
I love
you
soccer.
follow it though, right?
Yeah, I love watching the World Cup. That's about it.
Okay. Yeah.
I played soccer as like a little kid, but every little
Yeah,
kid
yeah.
plays
I mean, me
soccer.
too. I know everybody does like AYSO or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, I never really followed up with it after that. No, for me it was just more martial arts.
What kind of martial arts specifically did you
Aikido.
get into? Aikido. Okay.
Aikido. Yeah.
Aikido. Got it. And how far did you get up the belts?
I almost had a black belt, but then like I never had time after college and stuff like that. Or like
Oh
during
wow,
college.
almost black belt.
I was almost a black belt, but I never finished taking the last test.
Yeah, I mean, I almost got the brown belt for kung fu, but I also just like lost interest
Kung
after
fu
a
does
bit.
belts like that too?
Yeah, they well,
'Cause
okay.
I know that's a Japanese system.
Okay, let
the belt colors.
me put it this way: the one that was a United Studio of Self Defense did.
Okay,
So
well.
so maybe they don't follow the actual way that they're supposed
it's
to.
kung fu.
Yeah. Let's put quotations around
Yeah.
it. But
No, the whole like going to the gym and stuff like that I started. I mean, even in college I was going to the gym, but I never really knew what I was doing, and I didn't do it like I just did it to be in shape, right?
Mhm.
Like I did more running and stuff like that. I had very little fitness knowledge back then. I got into going to the gym kind of late, honestly, like late 20s. I was going to the gym after I finally moved out of my parents' place, and I started going to the gym near me, near my apartment. So I was like 26 or something like that, maybe 26, 27 when I started going to the gym like frequently, and then like I was kind of knowledgeable by the time, I was 29 or whatever.
and how did you get that?
2019.
And like, what was the best way you got that knowledge? Just for people
Internet.
that maybe are looking for inspiration.
Internet. You get so much information from the internet. Like you can learn everything you need to know about that kind of stuff. Like now, like back in the
especially
day,
now.
that would have been really hard. You'd have to get like fitness magazines and stuff like that, and just like try to piece together
Oh, I remember those
disparate
days
knowledge
with,
and stuff like
yeah.
that. But I didn't have that problem. I wasn't into it back then. For me, I learned a lot in the time between like when they closed the gyms and everyone was stuck at home for COVID, to like when I started going to the gym again after stuff opened up.
Yeah, well, what did you? Actually, that's a great point. What did you do while everything was closed?
I started working out
mostly.
at home, just with
You have
whatever.
like your own equipment, or
Not at the time, not when it started. Like I started getting things like one at a time, especially since everything was like deliveries. Like remember the beginning of COVID, like everything was on back order. Everything was like slow deliveries.
Everything was
like,
slow because everybody was getting toilet paper.
Yeah, like the supply chains were all messed up. So like the first thing that came in, I finally got like a pull-up bar. You could do a lot of stuff with a pull-up bar. The pull-up bar is the great first thing to get. And then like I finally started getting like one or two sets of like dumbbells,
Mm-hmm.
and then just everything else, just like calisthenics, like body weight stuff. and you can only go so far with that, I guess, especially when you're stuck at home, right? You can't even like go somewhere else. Um, so yeah, like I remember like I was up to like 150 pounds before COVID started, and then like by the end of the first year, like I'd been gone down to like 140. Like since I was just lifting less and eating less, because I wasn't as hungry because I wasn't working out as much. Yeah, I just dropped like 10 pounds, and it was just like super. I felt like I was wasting away, right? Like, but then as soon as I started going back to the gym, I started lifting again. I started eating again because my appetite was coming back more. Um, and there was a reason for me to eat more, and I shot back up to 150 pretty easily. I went up to 155, and now I'm like a 160 or something like that.
So going off now going a different route.
Yeah.
Same thing with the pandemic. I know all of us, we dealt with this. Couldn't really travel during the pandemic because of all the stuff with the airlines and all the scare with COVID and everything. And then then everything started opening up again. And I know you went on a trip recently. We were talking about it, to Vietnam and to South Korea.
Yeah.
So like, what were some of the things that you noticed maybe first and foremost about traveling after the pandemic that maybe were different, and then what maybe just talk a little about Vietnam and South Korea being there.
Well, before I get to that, also like it's funny we're talking about COVID and how that changed everything. I was literally about to go to Japan with a friend of mine when COVID like started basically, and we were like, oh, maybe we should cancel the trip and reschedule it later and let this stuff blow over. We shouldn't have done that because blowing over took years. We thought it was going to be months. We were stupid. We should have just gone. So that was sad. It was me and Adam. We were going to go. We'll go eventually, but in the meantime, me and my girlfriend, once we wanted to, now that things are possible to travel. And I was talking. I was like, oh, I really want to go to Japan still, but they were still closed to like tourism and stuff like that. So we planned to go to South Korea and Vietnam to go visit her family. She wanted to go to Vietnam, obviously, no matter where we went to in Asia. And yeah, Vietnam, because like traveling in after COVID, it's weird because everybody should wear masks, but not everybody does. But I noticed the American Airlines don't enforce it, but we went on Asiana, however you pronounce that airline's name, which is like a Korean airline, and they make you wear the masks, and I think that was top because it was like, okay, well now I feel a bit more secure, because I remember the only time I got COVID was traveling to Seattle for a friend's wedding, and then we got back and we had COVID.
Oh yeah, Adam told me about
Adam got it too, yeah. So it could have been on the flight, it could have been at the wedding, who knows? But the fact is nobody wears the mask, people get COVID, big surprise. Go to Asia, everybody has to wear their mask, nobody got COVID, big surprise.
Right? Yeah. Big surprise there. Like
also, Asiana has so much better food than American Airlines. Oh my, not American Airlines specifically, but American Airlines in America, from America, like United, stuff like that. Like they all have like the fucking worst food in the world, and like then you go on like an Asian airline like Asiana.
Dude, some of them don't even give you food.
Some of them give you
they just give you.
Well,
like,
they have to on an international.
I internationally do, but the domestic they give you like those little like snacks.
Yeah,
like, oh.
Yeah. You want more? They tell you to go fuck yourself. Yeah.
Really, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, Vietnam was fun. It's a different experience when you go and stay with someone's family, because you get more of a homey kind of feel. You get more of a local kind of feel. We eat a lot of stuff, with the family at home, in addition to going out and eating a lot.
What was the climate like?
Hot and humid, muggy. It was just, I was dying because I can't handle hot and humid, and that's just what it was. Winter, and so it's not as hot as it could be,
but it's still
hot.
Oh,
like
wow.
that's the weather. That's the difference. It's like it doesn't rain as much, but it still rains, and it's not as hot, but it's still hot. That's the weather. And meanwhile, and then we go to South Korea, and it's freezing. So I had to pack for both, obviously. I had to pack my warm clothes and my summer clothes at the same time.
Which parts of South Korea did you two end up going?
We went to Seoul, and we took a day trip to Busan, which doing a day trip to Busan is kind of more difficult than I
Train to Busan.
Yeah, we took the train to Busan, and we took like one of the earliest trains of the day to Busan, and we took like one of the last trains of the day back to
Oh,
Seoul.
dang.
Might have been easier if we just stayed in Busan for a night, but I was like, no, I was me in my head. I'm like, oh, we can do it. It's fine. Shouldn't have done that.
You're
We regretted it. We were so tired when we got back.
You're like, no, we're just
Yeah.
gonna go. It's okay.
It's like it's a fast train, right? Like, well, we can do it. I was like thinking like they're fast trains, but in my head I was thinking like the Shinkansen from Japan, which is incredibly fast. And train in Busan is not one of those trains.
Probably still faster than BART though.
It's so much faster. Well, you go to anywhere in the world that's not America, and like trains are better, right? Like in Japan, trains are better.
Spain, I've been,
Yeah,
better.
you go to say Europe, all the trains in Europe are great. Like all the trains in Korea were great.
Well, I mean, it's partially because they actually treat it as like
Yeah.
a system to be funded.
It's
properly.
a public transit that's actually designed to work, like be usable and stuff like that. It's great. And meanwhile, what do we have? We have a freaking toilet on rails that
We have a pee and poo infested BART.
yeah, BART that goes in one line. One line. That's not a public transport system.
Yeah, and then LA is even worse.
LA doesn't like if you want to oh god. Don't get me started.
But
with LA.
anyways, yeah, we.
That's one of the reasons I didn't go to that school in LA was because I would have to live in LA
The
for 2
metro,
years.
yeah.
And yeah, I couldn't afford a car, so I would have lived in LA without a car, which is basically like you can't live.
Yeah, you really can't.
Yeah.
So how was the when you hear about South Korea, you hear about all like the K-pop culture and the and all the just like the materialism within the culture. Like, did you get that feel when you were there?
I got it when we went to Gangnam. We checked out Gangnam and we went to like the famous mall there that I forget the name of, but that's where I felt the most like materialism and stuff like that. And there's also like shopping districts in different parts of the city that
of course,
that it's like you can definitely see it. You can see it if you're looking around, but I don't know. I guess I didn't have it in forefront of my mind or whatever. My mind was just like, I want to eat all this food. We eat a lot of food.
I knew you loved to have the food.
That's
too.
one of the things I love about traveling is getting to eat the food. Like the food in Korea was great. Food in Vietnam was great. Even though I got food poisoning that one time, it's all that my girlfriend's dad remembers was how I had food poisoning when we were on that boat.
Honestly, I feel like a international trip sometimes isn't complete without getting sick once.
I guess so. Yeah, I've been so lucky up until that point. Like I thought I was literally immune to food poisoning until that trip, but that trip taught me a lesson.
Got you.
I am human.
Got it.
I finally got food poisoning.
Finally, your iron stomach took a blow.
I thought it was just. I've eaten a lot of stuff. I've eaten chicken sashimi in Japan. I still got away scot free.
Wow.
Vietnam was the one that brought me down.
Got you.
And you know what? It wasn't even any of the street food. The street food I was fine with. I loved it. I ate all of it and never got any. I got food poisoning when we ate at the breakfast buffet place in the fancy resort we stayed in this area.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, that was the only time I got sick
What?
was eating from some fancy looking buffet thing. And I guess they just I don't know something about it.
Yeah, something that.
It was the only time I really ate I guess for the most part stuff is cooked, and I had maybe some fruit that had gone minging or something like that. But
yeah, something. I would have definitely bet the street food on that.
The street food I was fine with. I could have eaten it all day and it'd been fine. You can if you eat only if you go to Vietnam and eat street food, you can eat for $3 a day. It's so cheap.
Take note. I've heard the same thing about Thailand too.
It's probably the exact same.
Very cheap. I've heard from my cousin that her mom lives there. So, that's awesome. I'm really glad we got to hear about your trips and just find out a little more about those areas as well. I think people are interested in knowing about that and also just finding out about how you got into fitness and everything. With that being said, we're gonna get into our final surprise segment, which is your favorite fucked up flashcards. For a reminder for listeners, we have 2 minutes, really quick. I just throw scenarios at Josh. Josh is going to quickly answer, and those scenarios have consequences. And that's what this whole thing is about, just to have fun, goofy things. So, all right, let's get this party started. Okay, here we go. 2 minutes, starting now. All right, Josh. So get bit by a spider or get kicked by a gorilla?
Kicked by a gorilla?
Yes. Which
Bit
one?
by a spider.
Okay, all right. You're gonna get 10 kicks to the balls by a gorilla now.
Why?
Because that's just the way it works. Okay, Lord of the Rings or A Wheel of Time.
What are the rings?
Oh, that was too easy. Okay, all right.
I don't like Wheel of Time.
All right, just for that, you have to read Wheel of Time like 5 times in a row.
Oh my god, that's gonna take forever.
Exactly. Okay. Continuing. All right. Let's see. Go to the worst place that you could think of on Earth for a week, or get stranded in the ocean for 3 days.
I guess I'll take the worst place for a week.
All right, you're getting stranded on the ocean now for 2 weeks. Just
Why?
For that, because that's the consequence.
I don't get
for
this
choosing.
game.
You get consequences when you
Alright,
choose the wrong choice. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Eat the world's hottest pepper that's around, or have to sumo wrestle the world's best sumo wrestler in an exhibition match.
I had a sumo wrestler. That just sounds fun.
Oh damn!
Sumo
Okay.
wrestling.
All right. Sounds
I get
good.
beat up. It'd be fun.
You gotta eat the pepper while sumo wrestling now.
Oh Jesus Christ.
Can you imagine? Oh man. Okay. All right. Next one. We're gonna say okay. Fly on a plane to Japan, or ride a train and take a boat to Japan.
Train and take it.
So combination.
Okay, I'm gonna. My knowledge of this game now, I'm gonna pick the train and the boat.
You're picking the train and the boat. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
All right, fine. You get a first class flight to Japan.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. You chose wisely.
I finally
time.
figured it out by the end.
You finally figured it out there that you gotta choose the wiser option at times. The less wise option, in fact.
Okay, I get it. Finally.
Yeah. Finally, you got it there at the end. But normally we have a little crazier topics, but I wanted to make it more about like travel and stuff that Josh can relate to, and not just some of the bogus ones that we do usually, like because we usually do like all crazy stuff. This time I wanted at least some that were a little more tame and reasonable.
I didn't do my research coming into it. I'm like
Oh no, it's okay.
I'm like an Eric Andre guest that doesn't know what the show they're getting into.
We don't want our guests to know actually what this segment is, because it's supposed to be more of like a just a fun.
You got
boom,
the
boom,
pure experience out of me then.
Yeah, exactly. Pure experience. You were like, why?
I was very confused.
All right. Well, with that, guys, we're gonna go to the very last part right now. Just to continue straight from here. So Josh, do you want to give any shout outs to anybody that either that you've worked with in art, or anybody that's maybe inspired you to do the things that you do? Feel free to take a few minutes to just shout out people.
I could shout out so many people that I work with that are just amazing people, amazing artists. I don't know, like I'll give a shout out to Josh Harris, who's what I mentioned him earlier. He's a fellow artist back in Machine Zone. I learned a lot from him. He was not technically a lead for a while, but he definitely was our lead when he took the reins, when we were missing leadership and stuff like that. Give a shout out to some other artists from back in the Machine Zone days, and folks from the Machine Zone days. Alan Song, art director, great guy. Katie Fortune, also another artist that I work with, amazing artist, great person. Kate Crom, not on the art team, but also great person, a lot of fun to work with. Just people who made working there a lot of fun. There's a lot of other people. Oh, I'm blanking.
It's all good. The point is just to name some people, and you can also be more general about it too with teams if need be.
Yeah, just everybody that I work with in Machine Zone, like on like the art team, were pretty much incredible. So if I work with you, you're getting lumped into this shout out. And everybody who I work with now on Covet Fashion on the art team, also awesome people. And this is my chance to shout out me and another artist, a friend of mine in the Covet team, Mimi Nguyen, also did an art podcast a while back. We ended up kind of ending it during COVID because it just became impossible to have guests and stuff like that, and we decided it was too stressful. But to make it work in that scenario. So it's kind of like on what do you call a hiatus that has no set end date? Like,
Oh, it's like a what you call it? Like a I guess a break.
yeah,
Like
it's on an
long break.
indeterminately
Yeah. Indeterminate leave of absence.
leave of absence at the moment. But we still have our archive of episodes that we did make. And it's called Cadmium Dread.
Okay.
Kind of like Cadmium Red, but a little bit of existential horror in there with some Cadmium
Well, cool.
Dread.
Yeah, if you guys
So if you
want
check that out on it's on Spotify and YouTube still, so you can still listen to all the episodes there. It was a very similar format where we would have guests, people in the industry, artists and stuff like that, and yeah, give it a check out if you want to hear more of my dumb voice, I guess, but also like a lot of other great voices that come on the show with me. So
That's awesome. Honestly, that's great. I mean, getting to shout out other other endeavors that people did, like other podcasts or other mediums also that people do is great. I think people should go and check it out. Especially for avenues that we don't explore as much maybe on this podcast. So yeah, guys, please check it out. You heard the people Josh shouted out. I've really enjoyed having you on the show today. Really appreciated hearing your perspective and understanding more about what you do, because obviously I know you as a friend, but now I know a lot more about what you do also, like just every day. So that's fantastic. And yeah, for those of you that are interested, in pursuing art and learning more, or want to reach out to Josh, we'll include some of his info that he's comfortable with, and check out his ArtStation portfolio. And I'm sure he'd be willing to give tidbits and advice like he did here to some of the up and coming artists that are out there. So take care, everybody. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend and a great St. Patrick's Day next week. And this will be Peace Out from LFG with ANF. It's been a great time to be with you all. Until next time, take care. See ya.
bye bye.
Bye.